This is the third part of Chapter 2, Slides B, and we are starting with slide number 41, 41B. Okay, so that's 41. There we go. We already mentioned that there are lipids that are called triglycerides and lipids that are called phospholipids. There's also steroid lipids, and the steroid lipids are steroid hormones. The precursor for these lipids is cholesterol. Actually, they all start out as cholesterol. So steroids have a different structure. They don't have those fatty acid chains. They have 4 rings, okay? So the most important steroid is cholesterol, and cholesterol is made by the liver. It's also found in animal products like cheese, eggs, and meat. Cholesterol is the starting material or precursor for vitamin D, which is made in the skin. Steroid hormones like testosterone, estrogen, and bile salts. All of these start out as cholesterol. So cholesterol is very, very important. And it's important as well as phospholipids. It's important in the cell plasma membrane structure. Cholesterol is also found within the phospholipid bilayer. So this is what cholesterol looks like. There are 4 rings. And then we have eicosanoids. And eicosanoids are derived from arachidonic acid, which is found in cell membranes. The most important are prostaglandins. And prostaglandins play a role in blood clotting, control of blood pressure, inflammation, and labor contractions. NSAIDs, you've probably heard of NSAIDs, which are non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, aspirin, ibuprofen, Tylenol. These are all, well, I know aspirin and ibuprofen. I'm actually not sure if Tylenol is, but anyway, NSAIDs block the action of the eicosanoids or prostaglandins. Now we're on the section called proteins. So we've covered carbohydrates, we've covered lipids. Carbohydrates and lipids had the same 3 elements in them, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Now we're going to add nitrogen. So proteins contain carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and then sometimes sulfur and phosphorus. So sulfur, especially phosphorus, you tend to find more in DNA, not proteins. Proteins comprise 20 to 30% of cell mass. They can be structural. They can be enzymes. There's even some hormones that are proteins, like insulin, for example, is a protein hormone instead of a steroid hormone. So some hormones are actually proteins, and enzymes are always proteins. Muscles, for contraction, muscles are always protein. Proteins are polymers of amino acids. The monomers of proteins are amino acids. And they're held together by bonds called peptide bonds, and those are just bonds between amino acids. Some examples of protein function: we have structural proteins like collagen that's found in your skin and bones. Enzyme proteins, the enzyme is the purple part. Basically what's happening here is this is sucrose. If you remember what sucrose looked like, there's a glucose and fructose. A glucose and a fructose combine to make sucrose. When they attach to this active site or this special shape in the enzyme that's designed to break down sucrose, then the glucose and the fructose molecule are released. So this enzyme is used in a hydrolysis reaction. Then there are transport proteins like hemoglobin that transports oxygen. There are contractile proteins. The most important of these are actin and myosin in our muscles. Communication proteins, chemical messengers. A lot of times these can be hormones like insulin. This example is using insulin for the example. Antibodies, also called immunoglobulins. Antibodies are defensive proteins. So the covalent bonds that hold amino acids together are called peptide bonds. There are 20 total different amino acids. And all amino acids look like this. They have a central carbon, and carbon can make 4 bonds, right? So I'm sorry, I can't think. The chemical part, the functional group, that's what it is. The functional group that's bonded to carbon on the left side here is an amino group or an amine group. It's got nitrogen in it. And then on the right side, it's called the acid group or carboxylic acid group. Down at the bottom is the hydrogen. And then the R group can be anything. It can be any chemical compound, or it can be an atom, but the R group is what makes the amino acid different. It's what makes all 20 amino acids different. So the amino acids differ by which of the 20 different R groups is present. And you can see here how 2 amino acids are joined together. This is going to be a dehydration synthesis reaction because water is removed. And when they're joined together, the bond that joins them is called a peptide bond. When this dipeptide, meaning 2 amino acids have been joined together, dipeptide, when this dipeptide is broken up, water is added and 2 amino acids are produced. So that is the hydrolysis reaction. Okay, we saw something very similar with the carbohydrates. We also need to talk about levels of protein structure because they're not just chains of amino acids. They have very complicated, complex shapes. And just like in everything that we study in anatomy and physiology, the structure determines the function. So it's very important that proteins have this specific shape that's determined by the 4 levels of protein structure. The primary level is determined by the sequence of amino acids. So it just looks like a chain of amino acids. But then that protein will fold into different shapes. The secondary structure can either be an alpha helix, which is like the coils in a spring, or it can be pleated, like accordion ribbons, or if you've ever made a paper fan, pleated. Okay, so the beta pleated sheets or the alpha helix are the secondary structure of the protein. I always think about a phone cord. We still have phone cords. So a phone that has a cord, that's a helix structure. But let's say you take that phone cord and you tie it into knots or you fold it in different ways. That's now become the tertiary structure. So the tertiary structure is how the secondary structures interact. Or another way to say it is, it's the 3-dimensional shape of the protein. And it's now called a polypeptide. So the quaternary structure is not found in every protein. Some proteins have it and some don't. If a protein is composed of 2 or more different polypeptides, 2 or more different tertiary structures that have combined, then it has a quaternary structure. If we go back and look at, if it's not far, the hemoglobin has 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm not talking about the oxygen. I'm talking about the structure that the oxygen's attached to. It's got 4 globular structures, and that is the quaternary structure of hemoglobin. So this is the primary structure, is the chain of amino acids. The secondary structure can either be a helical alpha helix structure or beta pleated sheet. The tertiary structure will be the 3-dimensional structure. And the quaternary will be 2 tertiary structures or more that have been combined together. And I would recommend that you watch this animation. I'm trying to save time at the moment. So the animation is slide number 56. Proteins can either be fibrous or globular. You saw hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a globular protein. A fibrous protein would be like collagen. Proteins can denature if, for example, the pH changes or the temperature changes. And when it denatures, it can't work anymore. It doesn't function anymore. So when you cook an egg, for example, it's irreversible. You can't go back and uncook it, you know. Enzymes are catalysts. They are protein catalysts. That means that they are proteins that speed the rate of chemical reactions. And the way they do that is they lower the activation energy that's needed to initiate the reaction. This causes the reaction to speed up. Enzymes are often referred to as holoenzymes. They can consist of a protein portion called the apoenzyme and then a cofactor or coenzyme. Cofactor would be a metal ion like zinc. Coenzyme can be a vitamin or some other organic molecule. Enzymes are very specific. There'll be a specific enzyme that acts on a specific substrate or chemical reactant. So like, for example, sucrase is going to be an enzyme that helps to break down sucrose. They usually end in ase, usually, but not always. And they're often named for the reaction they catalyze. Again, they lower the activation energy. And so here's basically an example of a graph that shows the energy that it takes for these reactants to form into product, this activation energy without the enzyme. But with the enzyme, less energy is required for the reaction, so it happens faster. So that's how enzymes speed up chemical reactions. And you're looking here at 2 amino acids. They bind to their active sites, which are designed to have a shape that is similar to the shape of the substrate, in this case, amino acids. They bind to the active site on the enzyme. They are joined chemically together. Water is released because this is a dehydration synthesis. The product, which is a dipeptide, is released, and the enzyme can now carry out more